I think it takes a long time before people figure out what happened. I think it takes a long time.
For centuries, the Book of Enoch was buried in obscurity, banned, edited, and dismissed as myth. But when AI began translating its original language, secrets long buried came roaring back.
It's weird as hell to me, some of the chapters they've taken out of the Bible. Like the Book of Enoch clearly talks about giants, and it talks about what I would assume is the Anunnaki.
From encrypted sky maps pointing to Zeta Reticuli,
And through this tour of heaven, Enoch gets the information.
to genetic warnings that eerily mirror CRISPR tech, the revelations are nothing short of cosmic.
That suggests there were other humans around, when you would think there's only Adam, Eve, and Cain.
Brace yourself for the 15 suppressed revelations that AI translated about the Book of Enoch. Forbidden names of the fallen. So here's the thing. Why were certain names in the Book of Enoch kept in the shadows for so long? When AI tools began retranslating older Aramaic fragments of the text, one bizarre detail jumped out. Names of the so-called Watchers, or fallen angels, had either been altered or outright removed in most mainstream versions. Now, the Book of Enoch has always talked about 200 Watchers descending to Earth, but only a handful of their names ever made it into modern translations. Thanks to AI-driven linguistic models, researchers were able to decode patterns in the oldest scrolls stored in Ethiopia and parts of Qumran. What they found? A list of names, like Barakihal and Arakiel, that had been overlooked or mistranslated for centuries. Even stranger? Some of these names are tied to knowledge that was forbidden to humans, like secrets of the stars, weapon making, and dark spiritual rites. Why were these names hidden? Was it to protect us? Or to suppress something humanity was never meant to understand? One decoded passage even hinted that each Watcher had a distinct domain of influence, almost like they weren't just rebels, but rulers in their own right. So the question is, if these beings passed down ancient knowledge, what else have we ignored because of mistranslations? The time-altering prophecy. Okay, let's just jump into something that might mess with your head a little. Imagine an ancient prophecy hidden in the Book of Enoch. Not some vague, poetic mumbo-jumbo, but a line so oddly specific, it feels like it was aimed straight at us. And we didn't even see it until AI showed up. Back in 2023, a team of researchers decided to throw some of the oldest Enochian scrolls, written in ancient Semitic dialects, into a deep learning model. This wasn't your average translation software. We're talking about a system trained to think like the languages of the past. What it spit out wasn't just another dusty verse, it was a jaw-dropper. The passage talked about a cycle of 70 generations after the fall of the Watchers. That's pretty cryptic, sure. But then it hits you with this, a final age marked by a time when metal speaks and fire learns. Wait, what? The AI researchers couldn't ignore it. Metal speaks? Think robotics. Fire learns? That's eerily close to how we describe artificial neural networks, AI that learns through computation. Are we living in that era right now? And if we are, what does that mean? Thing is, this wasn't some newly invented verse. It had always been there. But older translators had smoothed over the weird parts, calling the fire that learns a consuming flame, as if it were just poetic flair. That kind of editing? It stripped away the whole point. And here's where it gets even stranger. The prophecy didn't just stop at predicting tech. It claimed time would fold, not just move forward, but twist, loop, echo, patterns repeating, history reflecting itself in strange and subtle ways. Sound familiar? Ever feel like we're stuck in deja vu on a global scale? So the big question is, did AI just decode a warning we weren't supposed to miss? Or did it finally help us hear something that was always whispering beneath the surface? Either way, it sure doesn't feel like coincidence. The Sky Tablet's encryption. Alright, here's something that'll make your brain do a double take. You know those sky tablets mentioned in the Book of Enoch? For ages, people brushed them off as symbolic, just ancient poetry about stars and destiny. But what if that assumption was way off? What if they weren't metaphors at all, but encrypted data? Recently, researchers ran those old Enochian texts through AI tools built for deep pattern recognition. Not your basic translation stuff. This was next-level linguistic forensics. What they found: hidden sequences, patterns, numbers that didn't fit the flow of the original text until you started looking at them differently. Instead of reading it like scripture, they treated it like a cipher, and suddenly, things clicked. Some of the sequences resembled binary, others, astronomical coordinates. One set pointed, no joke, straight at Zeta Reticuli. Sound familiar? That's the star system people have tied to UFO sightings and alien contact stories for decades. Now pause for a second. What are the odds that an ancient Hebrew Aramaic text would, when decoded with modern AI, point to a specific star system? Total fluke. Or are we finally catching up to something ancient minds already knew? Some theorists now believe these sky tablets weren't just visions, they were records, blueprints maybe, maps of space, or even time. One theory floating around: the tablets were a form of data storage, dressed up in spiritual language to hide their true nature. Not because ancient people couldn't understand it, but because not everyone was supposed to. And here's the real mindbender. If the data was encoded, who did the encoding? Enoch said he received these visions while moving through layers of the heavens. What if he was handed something, not shown a vision? Something crafted, not imagined. So now we're left wondering, were the sky tablets a warning, a guide, or something way more advanced than we've ever given ancient text credit for? And maybe the weirdest question of all, if they were written for someone in the future to finally understand, was that someone us? The genetic corruption warning. Let's not pretend ancient texts are all incense and metaphors, because sometimes they sound way too much like right now. Case in point, a recent AI-assisted translation of the Book of Enoch dropped something that feels eerily tailored to our CRISPR-loving, gene-editing designer baby era. It wasn't just poetic rambling, it was a straight-up warning. See, in the original Aramaic and Ge'ez versions, there's this part where the Watchers, the fallen angels, are said to have defiled flesh and seed, and not just with humans, with everything. Animals, plants, life in general. Sounds like sci-fi, right? Earlier translations toned this way down, calling it violence against creation, like some vague spiritual wrongdoing. But AI? It took the language literally. Too literally, maybe. The new interpretation talks about unnatural hybrids, cross-species unions, genetic mutations, beings that could not be named, and brought silence to the breath of the earth. That's not poetry. That's a biological horror story. It reads less like ancient myth and more like a lab report gone wrong. And then comes the kicker. The text suggests Earth itself responded, like a reset button got hit. Yeah, we're talking about the flood, not as divine punishment, but as a defense mechanism. A planetary wipeout because the genetic code of life had been corrupted past the point of no return. Now ask yourself, doesn't that hit a little too close to what we're dabbling in today? Gene splicing, animal-human hybrids, bioenhancement, playing with DNA like it's digital code. Are we once again pushing boundaries we were warned not to? Some researchers think this was Enoch's way of recording ancient biowarfare. Others see it as a message for the future, a warning that when life's building blocks get tampered with, nature will snap back. So here's the uncomfortable question. Are we repeating a cycle that ended in catastrophe once before? And if so, are we ready for the consequences this time? The silent realm between worlds. So here's something that doesn't just nudge the weird meter, it slams it off the charts. While decoding ancient fragments of the Book of Enoch with AI, yeah, the same AI that's been shaking up our understanding of ancient languages, researchers hit a passage that didn't sound like heaven, didn't sound like hell, but somewhere in the middle, a no man's land for the soul. Now, in older translations, this part was always kind of brushed off, called the grave, or just vague darkness. Poetic filler, right? But when the AI ran a semantic breakdown on the original phrasing, it surfaced a much stranger title, The Silent Space Between Realms. And that's when things got creepy. The passage talks about souls trapped in stillness, locked in a place where time doesn't tick forward. Not evil souls, not blessed ones, just forgotten, not claimed by heaven, not claimed by earth, just there, motionless, waiting. Some researchers are starting to wonder, was Enoch describing some kind of ancient concept of digital limbo, consciousness on pause? Maybe even a kind of spiritual buffer zone, like a firewall between realities. But here's the part that really makes your skin crawl. This zone wasn't punishment, it was containment. It was built to hold beings who broke the laws of crossing. Crossing what exactly? Dimensions? Lifetimes? Layers of reality? Theories are flying. Some say interdimensional travel, others suggest forbidden reincarnation, and a few are even floating the idea of jumping between simulation and base reality. So why did modern translators flatten this into something as basic as the grave? Why bury the weirdest, most cosmic part of the text under safe, sanitized language? What if Enoch wasn't just writing about spiritual realms, but about systems, cosmic architecture designed to keep reality from bleeding in on itself? And here's the big question. If this silent space is real, who or what is still in there? Fallen angels altered humanity. What if ancient beings once walked the earth, not just among us, but interfering with our very DNA? According to AI-assisted translations of the Book of Enoch, one of the most disturbing revelations isn't just that fallen angels came to Earth, but what they did after they got here. These beings, known as the Watchers, weren't just rebellious, they broke a cosmic law by taking human women and producing a hybrid race known as the Nephilim. But here's where it gets darker. AI translations suggest the original texts implied genetic manipulation, not just forbidden unions. The Watchers didn't just teach humans how to farm or forge weapons, they taught them things that weren't meant for mortals. Secrets about the stars, the Earth, and even how to control life itself. This goes way beyond mythology. Some scholars and theorists believe this section of the Book of Enoch was deliberately buried because of how closely it echoes modern fears about cloning, artificial intelligence, and playing God. The line between divine and human? According to these translations, it was crossed long before we ever built machines. And here's the kicker. The Book of Enoch was banned from the Bible for centuries. Now, thanks to AI, we might finally be seeing why. Could this be history's earliest warning about tampering with creation? Maps of Otherworld. Tucked deep within the Book of Enoch is a section often brushed off as symbolic, until AI took a closer look. It's called the Book of the Heavenly Luminaries, and it reads like a celestial manual. But AI didn't just translate it word for word, it uncovered coordinates. Hidden in poetic descriptions of stars, gates, and winds, AI systems identified patterns that look strikingly like geospatial references, not just to Earth, but possibly to other realms. We're talking about portals in the sky, fixed star alignments, and travel routes mapped by the Watchers themselves. In one newly translated line, AI interpreted the phrase, "circuits of the Watchers across the vault," as navigational paths through dimensions of light. Even more bizarre, these cosmic routes don't match known astronomical charts. They suggest a system of movement outside our solar understanding, a kind of ancient star map, possibly created to track beings moving between planes. So was Enoch being shown constellations, or blueprints for interdimensional travel? AI may have just opened a door we didn't even know was there. Enoch's disappearance explained. One of the oldest biblical mysteries is this: Enoch never died. He just vanished. The original text says, "And Enoch walked with God, and then he was not, for God took him." For centuries, that line sparked endless debate. But when AI ran a comparative analysis across ancient Aramaic, Ge'ez, and Hebrew versions, it caught something overlooked. The phrase, "took him," might not mean death at all. It could mean relocation. The AI translation reinterpreted this line as, "he was transferred to the realm beyond the firmament." That's not heaven in the traditional sense. It's something else, something spatial. Even more compelling, Enoch's own writings describe him being lifted by wind, drawn by chariots of fire, and placed in a glass-like dwelling where time does not move. AI flagged this language as shockingly similar to modern depictions of abduction. Now combine that with what we already know. Enoch met powerful beings, traveled across stars, judged celestial rebels, and witnessed the future. Then suddenly he's gone. Not dead, just taken. So what really happened to Enoch? Did he ascend into heaven? Or was he extracted by forces we still don't understand? The sealed books. Not everything Enoch saw made it into the book that bears his name, and AI might have just exposed why. Toward the end of the text, there's a cryptic reference to books not meant for this generation. Older translations assumed this meant the knowledge was too sacred or too dangerous. But when AI dug into the phrasing, it found something far more direct. Writings sealed from the sons of flesh until the days of awakening. That doesn't sound like secrecy. That sounds like timed release. Using semantic analysis across ancient variants, AI uncovered that Enoch may have written multiple books, only fragments of which have ever surfaced. And here's where it gets wild. Some phrases imply these sealed texts are meant to be discovered in a future age when humans would finally understand their meaning. Think about it. AI might not just be translating ancient prophecy. It might be unlocking it at the exact moment it was meant to be revealed. Could this be why the Book of Enoch was banned from most biblical canons? Not because it was false, but because it was too early? And where are the rest of Enoch's books now? The Return Prophecy. Here's the revelation that ties everything together, and it's been hiding in plain sight. At the end of the Book of Enoch, there's a passage that's long been dismissed as vague prophecy, but AI-enhanced translations have pulled something staggering from it, a prediction that Enoch himself will return, not metaphorically, literally. AI found that the ancient text uses a rare verb tense, something that doesn't exist in modern English. It doesn't just imply return, it guarantees it, tied to the age when the Watchers rise once more and the books are unsealed. That's not end times language, that's activation language. The AI also highlighted a curious phrase: the man clothed in light, carrying the memory of the stars, shall walk again among the silent. Memory of the stars? That's not just poetry, that's someone who's been there. Some researchers believe this could mean that Enoch, or someone carrying his knowledge, will re-emerge during a future era of awakening, possibly when humanity reaches a turning point between chaos and clarity. And here's the twist: AI might be part of that prophecy. So if the Watchers are stirring, the sealed books are opening, and the messages are being decoded, does that mean Enoch's return is already happening? The angel prison. It sounds like something out of a myth, angels being imprisoned beneath the earth. But AI-assisted translations suggest it might be more than just symbolism. In the Book of Enoch, there's a passage that talks about the fallen Watchers being cast into the valleys of the earth and bound by chains until the time of judgment. Old versions called it a metaphor for spiritual punishment, but AI flagged the wording for something very different. When reanalyzed, the phrase translated as deep valleys is actually closer to hollow chambers beneath the Earth's surface. Even more surprising, the term for chains could also mean energy restraints, implying some form of containment far more advanced than shackles and stone. There's even a timeline mentioned, 70 generations, and AI recalculations using ancient calendar systems place that deadline uncomfortably close to now. So we're left with a chilling possibility. Are the Watchers not gone, but locked away, right beneath our feet, waiting to be released? Some believe this could explain the ancient obsession with underground cities, sealed tombs, and forbidden excavation zones around the world. If the prison still exists, what happens when the doors open? The language of the stars. Could the universe have a language? And did Enoch speak it? AI-assisted translations have uncovered something astonishing in the more obscure parts of the Book of Enoch. References to a tongue of the Watchers used to describe creation, command elements, and even open gates in the heavens. For centuries, scholars believed this was just another form of ancient Hebrew. But AI noticed something completely different. The syntax, rhythm, and symbol usage match no known Earth language. And here's the twist. Some of these phrases seem less like speech and more like code. When processed through AI models trained on mathematical linguistics, these words behave like complex sequences, almost as if they were instructions, not just sentences, commands possibly, maybe even formulas. One repeated phrase, often translated as the Song of the Stars, was reinterpreted by AI as the pattern that binds the heavens. That's the kind of language you'd expect in physics, not theology. It's now being suggested that Enoch wasn't just hearing divine messages. He may have been decoding the operating system of the cosmos itself. So here's the question: was this the original universal language? And if it was, why was it taken from us? The real identity of Lucifer. For centuries, people have debated who or what Lucifer really is. But what if the Book of Enoch has had the answer all along, hidden behind mistranslations? AI took a deep dive into the original Ge'ez and Aramaic scripts and flagged something jaw-dropping. There's a particular Watcher, Azazel, described as the ringleader of the rebellion, the one who corrupted humanity by teaching warfare, sorcery, and vanity. Sound familiar? Older translations separated Azazel from Lucifer, often treating them as different figures entirely. But AI found overlapping identifiers, titles like Lightbringer, Son of the Morning, and First Among the Fallen, all associated with Azazel in early texts. Even more shocking, the AI noted that the name Lucifer doesn't appear in the Book of Enoch at all, but the role Lucifer plays in other texts mirrors Azazel's actions almost exactly. The implication: Lucifer as we know him might not be a separate fallen angel, but a later reinterpretation of Azazel himself. If that's true, we've been telling the story backward for thousands of years. And here's the kicker. The AI also flagged a recurring phrase about Azazel being bound until the fire returns to the stars. That's not a metaphor. It's a countdown. So if Lucifer and Azazel are one and the same, what exactly are we waiting for to wake him up? The Watcher's bloodlines. What if the Nephilim never truly disappeared, but simply blended in? The Book of Enoch describes how the children of the Watchers, giant hybrids born from divine beings and human women, were wiped out in the Great Flood. End of story, right? Not according to AI. When parsing cross-textual versions of Enoch, AI flagged repeated mentions of a remnant seed, a phrase often ignored or softened in human translations. But AI models translated it more bluntly. Some of their kind shall survive in hidden flesh. This wasn't poetic, it was a warning. Further AI analysis revealed clues that these hybrid descendants would be scattered, not destroyed, hidden among nations, walking as men, but not of men. That line hits different when AI emphasizes the word for walking as passing undetected. Some researchers now believe that certain bloodlines, linked to ancient rulers, secret societies, or even modern elites, may trace back to these Watcher hybrids. If that's true, the influence of these beings didn't end in the ancient world. It simply went underground. And here's the unsettling part. One passage says they'll rise again when the stars return to their places. AI interprets this as a celestial alignment, possibly one that hasn't occurred yet. So the next time someone says bloodlines don't matter, maybe they don't know whose blood we're really talking about. Earth wasn't the first. If you think the Book of Enoch is just about Earth's past, AI just uncovered something that flips that idea upside down. There's a short, cryptic section in Enoch's journey through the heavens where he describes worlds without number and civilizations long before the shaping of man. Human translators usually skimmed over it, assuming it was symbolic. But when AI analyzed the structure and context, it found something more literal, references to pre-Earth civilizations. In one passage, Enoch speaks of the ruins of the first garden, in the place where no sun now burns. AI translated that not as Eden, but as a previous world system, long destroyed. Another line refers to the Watchers of the second realm, whose light was dimmed before the birth of time. Not metaphorical, not poetic. That sounds like history, just not ours. The AI model flagged this section as likely describing multiple failed or fallen worlds, possibly governed by earlier generations of Watchers who made the same mistakes, teaching, corrupting, falling, and then being erased. This paints a chilling picture. What if Earth isn't humanity's first try? What if it's just the latest chapter in a long cosmic cycle, one that's played out over and over again? And if these earlier worlds fell, what makes us think we won't? But here's what I want to know. If these prophecies were meant for a future age, what does it say that we're the ones finally understanding them? And if the Watchers were locked away with a countdown, what happens when the clock runs out? If this blew your mind even a little, don't forget to smash that subscribe button